The dust cloud loomed on the horizon, a roiling beast of ochre and shadow that swallowed the Arizona sky. Zara Jenkins tugged her weathered hat lower, the brim cutting a sharp line across her vision as she squinted against the merciless June, sun of 1878. The heat pressed against her like a living thing, heavy as the memories she carried in the worn leather satchel slung across her chest. Willow Creek was supposed to be her escape, a nowhere town at the edge of the frontier where her past couldn't find her. But the storm brewing ahead promised no such mercy. Its growl, a warning she couldn't ignore. Her chestnut mare snorted hooves, scuffing the cracked earth as if sensing the danger. Zara's gloved hand tightened on the reins, her fingers calloused from years of riding, fighting, surviving. She'd faced worse than sandstorms, men with crueler intentions than the wind, promises that cut deeper than any blade. Yet the sight of that churning wall of dust stirred something primal in her, a flicker of the fear she'd sworn to bury. "Madame, you might want to seek shelter." The voice came from behind, deep and steady, cutting through the dry air like a well-aimed arrow that storms rolling in faster than most folks expect. Zara didn't turn, her lips curved into a tight line, her voice carrying the rough edge of someone who'd long since lost patience for pleasantries. "I've weathered worse." The crunch of boots on hard-packed dirt grew closer, deliberate but not threatening. "No doubt you have, but your horse seems to disagree." Bad made her glance back. Lila was indeed restless, tossing her head, eyes wide as she pawed at the ground. The man who'd spoken stood a respectful distance away, tall and broad, his face half-shadowed by a worn Stetson. His hands, calloused and scarred, hung loosely at his sides, betraying a life of labor. His eyes, though hazel flecked with gold, held a mix of determination and something softer, something that made Zara's guard flare, even as it intrigued her. "Dawson Riley," he said, tipping his hat just enough to reveal a faint scar along his jaw. "I've got a stable a quarter-mile east. Your mare would appreciate the shelter, and I brew a decent cup of coffee." "Coffee won't fix what ails me, Mr. Riley," Zara replied, already reaching for Lila's reins. Her voice was sharp, but her eyes lingered on him a moment too long, noting the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders, the quiet confidence in his stance. Never said it would. His smile was slight, but it reached his eyes, warm and unforced. Just said it was decent. The wind picked up, sending tumbleweeds skittering across the road like harbingers of the storm's approach. Zara weighed her options. Pride urged her to push on toward Willow Creek, to prove she needed no one. But practicality and Lila's anxious Winnie won out. "Lead the way, then," she said, swinging onto her mare with a fluid motion that spoke of years in the saddle. Dawson nodded, mounting his palomino with the same practiced ease. "May I ask your name?" he called as the wind began to howl. "Zara Jenkins." "What brings you to Willow Creek, Miss Jenkins?" Mrs. Shea corrected the title, a hollow weight on her tongue. "And I'm just passing through." They rode in silence, the horizon darkening behind them, the air thick with the scent of dust and impending rain. Dawson's ranch came into view, a modest but sturdy house with an adjoining barn, its fences tidy despite the harsh terrain. A small garden clung stubbornly to life near the porch, its green shoots defiant against the desert's cruelty. Everything about the place spoke of a man who believed in building something to last, a stark contrast to the men Zara had known, whose promises crumbled like dry clay. Inside the barn, they secured the horses as the storm's first gusts rattled the walls. Dawson moved with quiet efficiency, his hands gentle as he settled Lila in a clean stall. Zara watched him, noting the care he took, the way his fingers brushed the mare's flank as if reassuring her. It was a small thing, but it stirred something in her, a recognition of kindness she wasn't used to seeing. The house was simple inside, its stone fireplace and handmade furniture exuding a warmth that felt almost foreign to Zara. "Storm like this could last hours," Dawson said, stoking the fire. "You're welcome to wait it out here." Zara stood by the door, clutching her satchel, her posture rigid. "I don't make a habit of accepting hospitality from strangers." "Mr. Riley, Dawson," he corrected, straightening to his full height, which was considerable. "And in these parts, a storm's a greater danger than most strangers." He gestured to a chair near the fire. "Please, sit. I promised coffee." She hesitated, then slowly removed her hat, revealing dark hair pinned tightly against her scalp, a few strands escaping to frame her sun-weathered face. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and she relented, sinking into the chair. The fire's warmth seeped into her bones, coaxing a sigh she hadn't meant to release. "You've got a nice place?" she said, breaking the silence as Dawson handed her a steaming cup. "Thank you. Built most of it myself over the last 3 years." He settled into the opposite chair, his own cup cradled in his broad hands. "Not much, but it's mine." Zara sipped the coffee, letting its bitterness ground her. "You're out here? Alone? Just me and the horses?" He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "And occasional strays like yourself?" "I'm not a stray," she said sharply, her eyes narrowing. His gaze remained steady, unflinched. "My apologies." Poor choice of words. The storm unleashed its fury, sand and wind battering the house like a living thing. Silence settled between them, heavy but not uncomfortable, until Dawson spoke again. Where are you headed, Mrs. Jenkins? California, maybe? Oregon, somewhere different. She took another sip, avoiding his eyes. Running to or from the question was direct, cutting through her defenses like a well-aimed knife. She stiffened. That's rather forward of you. Just making conversation. He leaned back, his posture relaxed but his eyes keen. Most folks passing through these parts are doing one or the other. And which were you doing when you settled here? She countered, her tone sharp enough to draw blood. A shadow crossed his face, brief but telling. Both, I suppose. Left Texas after the war with nothing but my horse and the clothes on my back. His voice was low, measured, carrying the weight of unspoken losses. Confederate, joined up at 17, too young to know what I was fighting for, too old by the time I came home. Zara's grip on her cup tightened. The war was a wound still fresh for many, its scars etched into the land and its people. She understood his words too well. Her own youth had been spent in love, her marriage to Thomas bright and fleeting. By 27, betrayal had carved deeper scars than grief ever could. I lost my husband in 74, she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Fever took him quick. I'm sorry to hear that. Dawson's voice was soft, his eyes holding hers with a quiet empathy that made her want to look away. Life goes on. For some of us, she said, setting her cup down with a finality that ended the conversation. The fire crackled, filling the silence. Dawson didn't press, and she was grateful for it. Most men would have pried, their curiosity a demand she had no patience for it. Instead he rose and peered out the window at the raging storm. Looks like you'll be here a while yet. Hungry? I've got stew from yesterday that reheats well enough. Her stomach growled before she could decline, and his smile, warm not mocking, made her cheeks flush. He moved to the kitchen without waiting for her answer, leaving her to study the room. The furniture was sturdy, built with care, each piece bearing the marks of his hands. A small shelf held a few books, their spines worn from use, and a single, framed photograph of a couple, his parents, she guessed, from the faded sepia and the resemblance in the man's jawline. Dawson returned with 2 bowls of stew, fragrant with beef and root vegetables. She took hers, their fingers brushing briefly, and the contact sent an unexpected jolt through her. She focused on the food, its warmth grounding her as the storm continued its assault outside. What kind of horses do you raise? She asked, the question born of genuine curiosity. Quarter horses, mostly. Good sturdy stock for ranching. He stirred his stew, his movements unhurried. I break and train them for the larger spreads around here, planning to breed my own line. Eventually the croup. Have a good eye. Your Palomino is well proportioned. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. You know horses? My father raised them in Kansas before the war. A small smile tugged at her lips, a rare softness. I could ride before I could walk, according to family legend. He nodded, a spark of appreciation in his gaze. That explains your... See, most ladies don't ride astride with such ease. Most ladies haven't traveled alone across 3 territories, she said dryly. No, I don't imagine they have. He set his bowl down, his eyes lingering on her. Which makes me all the more curious about your story, Mrs. Jenkins. Curiosity's a luxury I can't afford to indulge. Mr. Riley Dawson, he corrected gently, his patience seemingly endless. And sometimes talking to a stranger is easier than talking to someone who matters. She took another bite of stew, the flavors rich and comforting, and considered his words. I was married again, briefly, she said finally. The admission, like pulling a thorn from her skin, it ended poorly. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be... It was my own fault for believing in something as foolish as love a second time. She focused on her bowl, avoiding his gaze. I won't make that mistake again. Dawson was quiet for a moment, then said, love can be foolish, but necessary, I think. Necessary. She looked up sharply, her voice edged with defiance. Like water or air. I assure you, I'm breathing just fine without it. Are you? His question was soft, devoid of judgment, but it struck her like a stone. She set her bowl down with a clatter. I didn't ask for philosophy with my shelter, Mr. Riley. Dawson, he corrected, his tone unwavering. And you're right. My apologies. They finished their meal in silence, the storm's howl filling the space between them. When they were done, Dawson cleared the dishes and returned with a worn deck of cards. I'm not much for philosophy myself, he said, a slight smile breaking the tension. But I play a fair hand of poker if you're interested. No stakes, just to pass the time. Despite herself, Zara felt a reluctant smile tug at her lips. I should warn you, I grew up with 3 brothers. His eyes crinkled. Consider me warned. They played for hours, the storm raging outside as the cards shuffled between them. Zara won more hands than she lost, her sharp mind catching. His tells a slight twitch of his mouth, the way his fingers lingered on a good card. Dawson was no novice though, his strategy adapting as he learned her patterns. The game was a dance, each move revealing a little more of the other. Their banter light but laced with unspoken questions. You mentioned California, Dawson said eventually, dealing another hand. Any particular reason? She hesitated, arranging her cards with care. I have a cousin in San Francisco. She writes that women can find decent work there, even respectable women alone, and that's what you're after. Work, a fresh start. Somewhere no one knows me or my mistakes. Her voice was steady, but her fingers tightened on the cards. He nodded, his expression thoughtful. Fresh starts are valuable, though in my experience, we bring ourselves along wherever we go. Some baggage can be left behind, she insisted, laying down 3 of a kind to his 2 pair. Perhaps, he said, his eyes meeting hers. But the lessons shouldn't be. She collected the cards, her movements sharp. The only lesson I need is the one I've learned. Love is for the young and foolish. I am neither anymore. That's a harsh lesson. His voice was quiet, but it carried weight. Life is harsh, Mr. Riley. Surely a former soldier knows that better than most. Dawson, he corrected, the repetition, almost a ritual now. And yes, life can be cruel, which is why we need love or at least hope to balance the scales. She scoffed, dealing the next hand. Hope is just disappointment, waiting to happen. That's one way to see it. He studied his cards, his expression calm. Another is that hope is the courage to believe things can be better, even when experience suggests otherwise. You sound like a preacher, he chuckled, hardly just a man who's seen enough darkness to appreciate the light wherever it's found. The storm began to wane as evening fell, the wind's howl softening to a low moan. Zara moved to the window, watching the dust cloud retreat, revealing a sky ablaze with oranges and purples. It's clearing, she said, relief and a strange disappointment mingling in her voice. Dawson joined her, keeping a respectful distance. Storms passed, but nightfall's not far off. The road to town's treacherous after dark, especially after a blow like this. She turned, suspicion flaring. Are you suggesting I stay the night, Mr. Riley? I'm offering the barn, he clarified, his tone earnest. It's clean, dry, with fresh hay in the loft. I'll stay in the house. You'll have privacy, and can be gone at first light. She searched his face for deceit, finding only sincerity. The idea of riding into town now, facing unknown dangers in the dark, tipped the scales. Very well, she said, but I'll be gone at sunrise. As you wish. He moved to the kitchen. Let me pack you some food for the journey. As he gathered provisions, Zara collected her things, her movements brisk to mask the unease. His kindness stirred. She wasn't used to generosity without strings, and it unsettled her. There's a creek behind the barn if you want to freshen up, Dawson said, handing her a cloth-wrapped bundle. Water's clear, and there's soap in the barn. Thank you, she said, their fingers brushing as she took the package. For everything. He nodded, his expression unreadable. Safe travels, Mrs. Jenkins. Zara, she corrected, surprising herself. If I'm to call you Dawson, it seems only fair. His smile transformed his face, softening the hard lines of his jaw. Zara, then may you find what you're looking for in California? She held his gaze a moment longer than necessary, then turned toward the barn, feeling his eyes on her as she walked away. The barn was as promised, clean with fresh hay in the loft and the comforting smell of horses and leather. Lila nicked softly, content in her stall. Zara brushed her down, the familiar task soothing her restless thoughts. At the creek, she washed away the day's dust, the cool water a balm against her skin. The desert night was quiet, save for the distant call of a coyote and the creek's gentle murmur. Back in the loft, she arranged her bedroll, the hay soft beneath her. Through a small window, she saw a single lamp burning in Dawson's house, a solitary beacon in the vast darkness. It stirred something in her, something she quickly pushed down. Sleep came fitfully, her dreams a tangle of storms, cards, and hazel eyes that saw too much. At dawn, she woke to the soft glow of a desert sunrise, her resolve to leave as firm as ever. She packed quickly, fed Lila, and led her out of the barn. Dawson was waiting, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. For the road, he said, offering it. You didn't have to get up. She took the cup, her fingers brushing his again. I'm usually up before the sun. He nodded toward the horizon, where the first rays spilled over the mountains. It's the best time of day out here. She sipped the coffee, its warmth chasing the morning chill. It is beautiful, she admitted. The road to town's straightforward. Follow the main trail east for 4 miles. You can't miss it. He took the empty cup. There's a decent boarding house, if you need rest before moving on. Mrs. Holbrook runs it. Tell her I sent you. Zara mounted Leela, looking down at him. You've been uncommonly kind to a stranger, Mr. Riley. Dawson, he said, his smile soft. And kindness costs nothing but means everything out here. She gathered the reins, suddenly eager to escape the weight of his gaze. Goodbye then. Safe travels, Zara. He stepped back, his expression solemn. And remember, not all storms leave destruction. Sometimes they clear the air for something new. She urged Leela forward without responding, resisting the urge to look back. By the time the sun was fully up, Dawson's ranch was a memory. Swallowed by the vastness of the desert, Willow Creek was more than she'd expected. A proper town, with a bustling main street, a general store, saloon, and a dressmaker's shop that seemed out of place in the dust. The boarding house was a 2-story building with green shutters and a garden fighting the arid climate. Mrs. Holbrook, a plump widow with a warm smile, greeted Zara like an old friend when she mentioned Dawson's name. "Any friend of Dawson Riley is welcome here," she said, leading Zara to a clean upstairs room. "Such a fine man. This town would be lucky if he spent more time here instead of that lonely ranch." "We're not friends," Zara clarified, setting her satchel on the bed. "He just offered shelter during the storm." Mrs. Holbrook's knowing smile suggested. She'd heard such disclaimers before. "Well, he doesn't send many folks my way, so you must have made an impression. Staying long, just tonight. I'm headed to California, alone." The woman's eyebrows rose. "That's quite an undertaking for a lady." Zara's expression hardened. "I've managed thus far." Mrs. Holbrook seemed unfazed. "No doubt, dear. Dinner's at 6, breakfast at 7. Washrooms down the hall." Zara spent the afternoon at the general store, restocking supplies and quizzing the storekeeper, Mr. Peterson, about the road west. "Stick to the main trails," he advised, wrapping her purchases. "Bandits have been active on the northern routes, though they usually target larger parties." "I appreciate the warning," Zara said, counting out coins. "I'll keep to myself. There's a stagecoach to Tucson twice a week if you'd rather," he added. "Safer. I prefer my own pace." He nodded, though his expression suggested he thought her foolish. "There's a church social tonight if you're interested. New folks are welcome." "Thank you, but I need rest." The last thing she wanted was to field questions from curious townsfolk. Dinner at the boarding house was a quiet affair, shared with a traveling salesman, an elderly couple, and the town's new teacher. Zara kept to herself, nodding politely as conversation flowed around her. She was about to excuse herself when the front door opened, admitting a gust of evening air and an unexpected figure. Dawson Riley paused in the doorway, his eyes finding hers with a flicker of surprise. He recovered quickly, removing his hat. As he greeted Mrs. Holbrook, "Just dropping off those books I promised for your lending shelf, Martha." "Dawson, what a lovely surprise," Mrs. Holbrook exclaimed. "Stay for coffee. I should get back before dark." His gaze drifted to Zara. "Just wanted to make sure Mrs. Jenkins found her way safely." Zara felt the other diner's eyes on her. "As you can see, Mr. Riley, I managed just fine." "Never doubted it." His smile was warm, disarming. "Glad you're settled comfortably." Mrs. Holbrook's insistence on coffee and apple pie won out, and Dawson took a seat across from Zara as the other guests drifted away. "You didn't need to check on me," she said quietly once they were alone. "I was coming to town anyway." He gestured to the books. "Martha runs a lending library. I had some novels gathering dust." She raised an eyebrow. "You seem displeased to see me." "Not displeased," she said, folding her napkin. "Surprised. That makes two of us. I didn't expect you'd still be here. I leave tomorrow at first light. California's waiting." Mrs. Holbrook returned with pie and coffee, then retreated, leaving them in a cocoon of quiet. "Ivan, thinking about what you said," Dawson began, his voice low, "about not believing in love anymore." "I'd rather not revisit that," Zara said, her tone clipped. "Fair enough." He took a bite of pie, then looked up. "Why books?" The question caught her off guard. "What? You asked why I brought books?" "Reading got me through dark times after the war. Figured others might find the same comfort." "What do you read?" she asked, curiosity overriding her caution. "History, poetry, novels, when I can get them." His smile was faint. "Words are a good company on long nights. My father used to read Dickens to us," she said, the memory softening her voice. "It was his favorite, a man of taste." Dawson's expression grew thoughtful. "You mentioned brothers. Are you still in touch?" The question prodded old wounds. "My parents are gone. One brother died at Gettysburg. The other, we drifted apart after I married. I'm sorry." His voice was gentle. "What about you? Any family?" "None living." His jaw tightened briefly. "Raiders burned my parents' ranch in Texas during the war. They didn't make it out." "That's terrible." "War makes monsters of ordinary men," he said quietly, "on both sides." They lapsed into silence. The clink of forks against plates the only sound. Zara studied him, noting the lines around his eyes, the silver threading his dark hair. "What made you settle here?" she asked. "It's remote." That was the appeal. He set down his fork. "After the war, I couldn't stand crowds or noise. Needed space to think, to remember who I was before I became a soldier." "And did you?" "Parts of him?" His smile held a trace of sadness. "Other parts were lost for good, but I found new ones to replace them." Mrs. Holbrook reappeared, breaking the moment. "More coffee?" "No, thank you," Dawson said, rising. "I should head back. Thank you for the pie, Martha." He turned to Zara. "Safe travels, Mrs. Jenkins. I hope you find what you're looking for in California." "Thank you," she replied, unsettled by the finality in his tone. As he left, Mrs. Holbrook sighed. Such a fine man. Half the women in town would set their caps for him if he'd let them. "He mentioned losing his family," Zara said, surprising herself. "Yes, a tragedy. He doesn't speak of it often." The older woman studied her. "He seems to have taken a liking to you, though." "He was being neighborly," Zara said, her cheeks warming. Mrs. Holbrook's smile was knowing. "Dawson doesn't ride into town just to check on strangers, dear." Zara retired early, but sleep eluded her. Her mind caught on a certain rancher whose quiet presence had slipped past her defenses. Morning brought a new complication. Rain, not a gentle drizzle, but a deluge that turned the streets to mud. Mrs. Holbrook advised against travel, citing the risk of flash floods, and Zara reluctantly agreed to stay another day. Restless by mid-afternoon, she donned her oilskin coat and checked on Leela in the stable. As she returned, she spotted Dawson dismounting in front of the general store, soaked despite his rain gear. Without thinking, she crossed the muddy street. "Mr. Riley," she called. He turned, rain streaking his face. "Mrs. Jenkins. Didn't expect to see you still here. The weather changed my plans." She gestured to the downpour. "What brings you out in this?" "Medical supplies. One of my mares is foaling, and there might be complications." Concern flared in her chest. "Can I help? I assisted my father with foalings in Kansas." His eyes searched hers, then he nodded. "Another pair of experienced hands would be welcome, if you're serious." Let's hurry then. Sierra's been struggling since before dawn." Zara gathered her things, settled with Mrs. Holbrook, and joined Dawson in the rain. They rode hard, the trail slick and treacherous, but Zara matched his pace, her focus as sharp as his. At the ranch, they went straight to the barn, where a bay mare lay in a straw-padded stall, her flanks heaving with effort. "She's been laboring for hours," Dawson said, his voice tight. "Water broke at noon." Zara shed her coat and knelt beside the mare, her hands moving with practiced calm over Sierra's swollen belly. "The foal might be positioned wrong. I need to check." For the next hour, they worked in tandem, their movements synchronized as if they'd done this 100 times. Zara confirmed the foal was breech and, with Dawson steadying the mare, carefully repositioned it. Sweat beaded on her forehead, her hands steady despite the mare's pained thrashing. Finally, the foal emerged, a leggy black colt with a white star. "He's beautiful," Zara said, her voice soft as the colt struggled to stand. "Thanks to you." Dawson's smile was wide, relief etched in every line of his face. "I'm not sure I could have managed that alone." "You'd have found a way," she said. But her own smile mirrored his. They stayed until the colt was nursing and Sierra was stable, then trudged to the house through the slackening rain. "You should change," Dawson said. "I can find something dry for you to wear." Exhausted Zara nodded. He returned with a faded blue dress and a shawl. "These were my mother's. Should fit well enough." She changed behind a screen, the intimacy of wearing his mother's clothes not lost on her. When she emerged, Dawson had changed too, his damp hair curling slightly at the nape of his neck. He tended to the coffee pot, giving her space to compose herself. "The dress fits well," she said, breaking the silence. He turned, his expression softening. "It suits you." He gestured to a line by the fire. "Hang your things there, too dry." They settled by the fire with coffee, the rain a gentle patter outside. "Thank you," Dawson said after a silence. "Sierra's one of my best mares. Losing her would have been a blow. I'm glad I could help." Zara cradled her cup. "He's a strong colt. What would you name him? You helped bring him into the world? Seems fair, you should have a say." "Tempest," she said after a moment. "Born in the storm, Tempest it is." His approval warmed her more than the fire. "Will you still leave for California tomorrow?" he asked, his tone neutral. "I should." She stared into her coffee. "I've delayed long enough, of course." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "The trail should be passable by mid-morning." They talked of safer things, horses, books, the ranch until exhaustion won out. "You should rest," Dawson said, noticing her yawn. "Take the bed. I'll sleep by the fire." "I couldn't please," he interrupted gently. "After today, it's the least I can offer." Too tired to argue, Zara acquiesced. The bedroom was simple. A patchwork quilt on the bed, a book of poetry on the table. "Good night, Dawson," she said softly. "Good night, Zara." Sleep came quickly, her dreams filled with storms and gentle hands. Morning brought clear skies and a decision she hadn't expected to make. In the barn, she found Dawson with Tempest and Sierra, the colt tottering on his new legs. "Good morning," she called, her voice steady. He turned, his face brightening. "You're just in time to see him show off." "He's doing well," she said, leaning against the stall door. "Thanks to you." He glanced at her. "How'd you sleep?" "Better than I have in months." She hesitated, then plunged forward. "I've been thinking about us, about love." His eyes softened, but he stayed silent, giving her space. "You said you believe in love enough for both of us." "I'm afraid," Dawson afraid, "to trust, to feel. But I'm more afraid of missing something real." She met his gaze. "I'll stay 1 week. No promises beyond that." His smile was radiant. "1 week it is, and I'll sleep in the barn," she added firmly. "Of course," he said, his eyes dancing. "Whatever makes you comfortable." As they stood in the morning light, watching Tempest stumble and rise, Zara felt a shift within her. Not love. Not yet, but the possibility of it, fragile and new. Like the colt finding his footing in a world both harsh and beautiful.